There are a lot of extra things you could buy on a cruise ship. Some are really worth it, and others maybe not so much, depending on what you value. On this channel, I help you spend smarter, pack calmer, and cruise better. Today, I'm going to share with you some things to consider when you're trying to make a decision about what feels right for you in terms of where you want to spend your money on a cruise ship. So you're getting the value you want and making your cruise better for what you're wanting to experience. One of the great things about going on a cruise is some of the excursions you can go on. And we love looking at the different itineraries in advance, picking some different excursions. But one particular cruise, we're docking somewhere on a port in France, and we elected to pick an excursion that was going to Paris for the day. And we had been to Paris before. We thought it'd be great to just get a little bit more of Paris in during the day. So the excursion sounded like a lot of fun. It was going to be a long bus ride, but we thought we'll get some narration along the way. Unfortunately, the bus ride took a lot longer than they expected because of extra traffic. And we were supposed to get there and as a group have a nice little lunch at one of the cafes. Well, that got delayed, and so that became more of a challenge for them to fit us in. And then, of course, they had to allow extra time to get us back to the ship. So all in all, we really had very little time to explore Paris. The bus drove around the town, but at that point, there just wasn't the time that we thought we would have. And it's happened like that on a few other trips as well. So now when we look at excursions, we like to factor in what are really going to be able to get done that day versus what are we missing by not simply staying at the port, which might be giving us an opportunity to explore a few different things at the port rather than taking on just one excursion that could be largely a lot of travel time. It's just something to consider. Sometimes doing an excursion isn't the best idea when the port you're going to is really going to have a lot of nice experiences. One thing we've started to use is ChatGPT, or you can use another AI tool to find out what's actually at the cruise port that you might want to do, and to actually even get a map of where the things are at so you can do something on your own. Sometimes when we go to a cruise port, we decide to just walk around the port. There's different things to do. It's a lot of fun, taking a lot of variety. However, one time when we chose to just stay at the port, we didn't plan anything in advance. We got to the port, the town looked charming, but the problem was it was on a Sunday, and there is absolutely nothing available to do on a Sunday. So from that experience, we've learned, and now with newer tools like different AI tools, we will do just our quick little AI prompting in advance and find out what's actually at a cruise port, and is there anything that we need to be aware of in terms of days where things just may not be available. So doing that simple check will help us to explore and decide, okay, maybe the port is a better idea than going on an excursion that might have a long trip. One of the great things about cruising is that they often will have different specialty dining experiences, and we've enjoyed them too. However, one thing we've started to consider is that if we're going to be at a port on a particular day, and we're hearing that there's certain types of foods that are particularly interesting that day, like maybe it's going to be a lobster roll in a certain location, and I know I'm going to want to try that out, or some other kind of specialty ice cream or whatever it might be. If we feel it's going to be more of a snacking day for us, we kind of think about, we really want to do a specialty dining that night when the day might be filled with a little bit more of those extra food items that we're going to want to enjoy. It's something to consider. The other thing we also like to consider is what's actually going to be in the different dining rooms each night. For example, a lot of cruises will have the lobster night that's included in the dinner for one particular night. There might be something you particularly enjoy, like I love lamb chops. Well, I'll look ahead and find out if there's a certain night in the dining room where they're having lamb chops. I don't want to be going to the specialty dining that night. So it's something to consider. Is there enough in the dining rooms that you are going to like anyway? And we've often found that because we'll look for cruise ships that really do have pretty high standards in terms of dining, that most cases we're just as happy in the dining room. But if you want to look into a specialty dining, that's great. That's something you enjoy. You just might want to consider some of these other things when you're planning what night's going to work best for you. One thing that we've found to be really important to spend some extra money on would be our choice of cabins. So we've gone on several cruises, and most times we've had no problem at all. But one time we're actually put right below like a kitchen dining room area. And I think they started preparing the meals at 4 in the afternoon, and we could hear the clanging of the chopping or whatever it might be. Not a great experience. Luckily, they were able to move us to a room, but sometimes the cruise ships can be full, so that's not always an option. Another time, we're right below a major entertainment venue. We like to go to bed early because we like to get up really early. So for us, being below an entertainment venue doesn't work out so well, whereas for someone else, it may not be a problem. One time we went on a transatlantic cruise, and that was the only cruise that was extra rocky. And some of our friends were on the ship, and they had gotten a lower room or midship. They had no problems at all, whereas we were at a higher level and way in the back. It's something to consider based on the cruise you're going on and what's important to you, and to think about maybe a cruise cabin upgrade will be a really good investment. Another popular package on cruise ships is internet access. We like to disconnect when we go on a cruise, and that's one of the many reasons why we love cruising. We also have telephone packages that when we get off at the different ports, we usually have free Wi-Fi. We will check into our plan in advance. If we have to pay a nominal fee for a little bit extra coverage, it's definitely worth it. The other thing to do is at a lot of the ports, for example, if you go to a coffee shop, usually if you buy a coffee or something which is kind of nice to do and to sit in the cafe, that they'll give you their free Wi-Fi code. But we find that we'd rather disconnect. And so we don't often pay for that internet experience on the ship. We'd rather save that and use it for something else. And then make sure that we are in fact disconnecting, because by having that coverage all the time, we feel like we're not as relaxed. So it's something to think about. There's always an emergency phone number that we'll give to our family members. So if anybody does need to reach us, there's a way that they could. It's something to consider in terms of what you value, in terms of the experience that you want to have on a cruise ship. I hope these simple tips will help you spend smarter on a cruise ship so that your next cruise can be your best cruise. And maybe I'll see you cruising with Susan.